will turn off the lights and run out. So I would take my first bathroom break at the class that I hated the most, math. I'll be like, "Math, can I use the restroom?" And she'll let me go. And then I'll go to the restroom, and then I'm like, "Okay, there goes, yeah, no goes here." And then sometimes you have to have confidence because you don't know if it's around, you know. So I will say things like, "Hey, you know, I'm sorry. How are you? How are you doing?" You know? Okay, and then I'll try to pee, but I didn't have to go to the restroom. I just wanted to go because I didn't want to be in class. So I'm standing there wondering, why did I choose to go to the restroom? Maybe I should just try to pee anyway. So I'll stand at the urinals and I'll go, and then I'll squeeze a tiny little drop out. So I'll squeeze the drop out, and then I'll I'll go back to class. And during math, it's so boring. I have to drink a bunch of water. I don't know why. I'll drink a bunch of water, and now I really have to pee. But every kid here knows student etiquette, and the thing is, you never ask your teacher to go to the bathroom twice in one class, right? You never. You don't know why, but you just never ask, right? Do you ever ask your teacher to go to the restroom? No! Wow, it's lenient, but I couldn't. I knew better. So now I really have to pee. But I can't ask the teacher to go, so I'm sitting in my chair. And I'm like, oh, I have to go now. The student shuffle, you know, it's just sitting there. And I can see when my friends, because I sat all the way at the back of the class, I didn't like math. I sat all the way at the back, so I could tell when my friends were falling asleep. I could tell if they needed to go to the restroom because they were doing the shuffle. And the thing is, the seats in school, back then, maybe they're still like this right now, were curved, right? And before I knew what the human body was like, this is what I thought the human body was. No, it's not bad. So I knew that we have two kidneys because my aunt had a donor before, you know. So the human body, hands. Okay, so when I heard that the human body was made up of 70% water, I was like, okay, 70% water. That's what I thought the human anatomy was, okay? And the thing is, I know that when I start the day, maybe the water was about like this. Okay, and then I know that my kidneys are like here. Those are my ovaries. So I really need to go, which means when you really need to go, it means that the water level is here. And the kidneys are hurting, you know, because I don't know why the kidneys hurt, and the only thing I thought about was sometimes when you dive in too deep into the pool, your ear starts to hurt, right? So I was like, oh, you need to get up. Okay, so one of these kidneys have to get up. So I'm like, because the chair was curved, I would go up to the curved side, and then I'll do this, right? So what this means is that now, because I'm at a lean, this my water level has changed. It's gone like this. So during class, all I was doing was like, okay, let's give the right kidney a break. And it worked for a bit, and I'm like, okay, now the left kidney. And sometimes you really hold to the chair, you're like tilted like this. You know? But I knew I couldn't ask the teacher to go. But then in primary 3, I took up science, and one of the first things we learned was evaporation. And so, evaporation in theory was if you leave a pool of water out on its own, it would slowly go away. Okay? And I'm like, okay, that means if I can just let one drop out at a time, I would let one drop out, it would have time, I'll give it some time to evaporate, and then I'll let another drop out, and it will be like magic. But the thing is, this kid is having way too much of a good time. So I was like, okay, maybe if I just let one drop out at a time, it will work. But this is all in theory. Okay, I've only learned about evaporation, and I was like, I can control my piss. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, I've never tried this before, but let's try it. Oh my god! No one told me that you can't stop it. The will is strong, but the flesh is weak. So I'm like trying to stop it, but I can't because it is also feeling really good.
Okay, this is going to
So at this point, my pants are much bluer than my friend's pants. And I'm looking over at Andy, because Andy is my best friend, he's sitting on my right, and he's just paying attention and doing all this stuff. And then I'm just like, oh my god, my pants are so... And the thing is, it's getting to the end of the class. At the end of the class, you say goodbye, teacher, you all stand up and you bow. I can't let that happen, right? So I'm like, oh my god, my pants are so blue. So I'm like really, really tough into the table, you know? And I'm like, I have to think fast because people are gonna know I pee my pants. So I took my Ribena and I'm tapping it. And now I have Ribena all over myself, which is great. So then of course, the teacher's like, Shimei, why so clumsy? Okay, Andy, help clean up, blah, 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 blah. I was like helping me clean up my Ribena and thinking like, man, your mom's Ribena smells weird. And in Singapore, when you're bad in school, because my school was trying to rank in top 10, the principal pulled me into the office and told me, I remember that day, Mr. Tan told me that you are not doing very well. I'm going to tell you what you have to take to improve your grades. But of course, what he meant by improving his grade, my grades was so that the school can rank better because apparently I was single-handedly bringing down the entire school's reputation. So he gave me all the very easy subjects, and then later on, this is in secondary school, when I was about 16, I wanted to choose what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. You guys will get that at one point. And then my choices were very, very limited because at this point I realized that I don't have the skills my friends in the science stream has. I didn't want to go into arts because I heard that arts was terrible. So I came to a point where I really didn't know what to do anymore. And I'm going to read you guys a chapter from this book which talks about that day. Okay, it's the third book. It's on page 168.
I really need to come in front and record. This is a bad idea.
So 168. This is when I was 16. When I was a kid, there was a time when I was 16 or so, when we had to choose schools based on what we had to do, what we want to do for the rest of our lives. This is a scary moment because, of course, at 16, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I was good at art. But I've always denied myself of wanting to do art because I wanted to please my parents. My parents wanted me to be a doctor or a scientist, things like that. And I knew I could draw, but I've always kept it from my parents. I didn't have many choices because I wasn't great at school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. By that time, most of my friends were already studying. While I was still trying to get into a school, I remember applying for a school in America. We had to fill up this huge packet of forms and visa requirements, and it was overwhelming. And then I counted the number of days I had to gather all my information, and all the days it would take to snail mail that package. You guys do snail mail anything?
No.
Yeah, snail mail is great. Snail mail, you have to worry about, whether you have enough time, whether the postman will steal your stuff. That's what my mom told me, this. And I realized I had no time to make admission. And I panicked. But I was helpless. My parents didn't know what to do because they never got this far in their education. And they were no longer pillars I could lean on. Nobody could help me. Nobody could tell me what the next right step to take was. My dad drove us to a restaurant at night because my uncle visited. When we got to the parking lot, I cried in the car. Yep. So that was a time where it was very rough on my end, and I want you guys to know that if you guys do experience it right now, or when you get to about 16 and you have to decide on which school you have to go to, don't worry, because I've switched careers more times in the last 4 years, according to Raj, than probably anyone I know. Okay, so I'll do 2 more book readings, and then we'll proceed with any Q&A, and then once we're done with that, we'll go on with the signings. Sorry to cut the line short, but today's lesson is life isn't fair.
No, I actually don't want to.
Okay, this one is called the pinch. I don't know what pinch it is. Can someone tell me the pinch? Okay. Okay, it's on page 122 of the 3rd book. So, when I was a kid, we would go out for dinner with guests, and there would be chopsticks. And what do kids do with chopsticks? Drum solos.
Oh yeah.
Everyone did that. So I'll be there on the dinner table, going tick 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 tick, and out of nowhere, this hand would come up to my thigh, and it would be a twisting pinch. It's not just a pinch. The twisting pinch is much harder. So I'll be like,
That sounds so wrong.
And the thing is, it's always my mom pinching me. My dad doesn't. Okay, my dad gives me as much freedom as I want, but my mom can't stand this drumming thing. So she'll pinch me. And the thing is, no one knows what happened. So everyone's at the dinner table hearing me go do my drum solo, and then suddenly I stop and and I can't scream because you cannot shame the family like this. We have guests. It's the same way you guys have to keep quiet when I was going to talk because we have guests. I cannot shame my family. So it was really painful, but I couldn't make a noise because we had guests. I just stopped because it was just a warning. Sometimes, if I didn't behave, my mom would turn around to me and look at me like this. She'd be like, Ning, you are so well behaved. Random compliment, oh my god, best parent ever. So Mr. Lee will be talking to her, and then sometimes so Mr. Lee will be sitting here, I would be here, and then my mom, of course, would be facing Mr. Lee, and they'll be talking about, oh, how's the family business? And I'll be like, or she would just turn to me and say, Ming, you're very well behaved today. Or sometimes, she'll say things that she would mean the exact opposite. Okay, I remember that look on her face, her face didn't move. It was just a smile like this. And then her teeth were locked. So she was like a ventriloquist. She could just push words out of the mouth like, 等一下我回家请你吃藤条呢 And you know. So do you guys understand that? So what she meant was, when we go back, I will treat you to some rotan. Which is funny because rotan is now a snack. Right?
True.
So she would say things like, 等一下我回家请你吃藤条呢 It's like very, very nice tone, so no one suspects anything. Sometimes she would twist the thing around and say, 等一下我回家请你吃粿条 And we, of course, we are at the dinner table, and she's like, later we go back, I'll treat you to some kway teow, you know, kway teow for rotan. And then Mr. Lee would be like, your son is still hungry, we can order more food. And I'm like, one time, I got so sick of being pinched, I screamed when she pinched me under the table. So she's like, ah! You know, it wasn't that hard of a pinch, but I completely exaggerated it. And then everyone stopped talking and they all looked at me, you know. And to make things obvious, I kicked, because they have the red tablecloth in Chinese restaurants, so I kicked the tablecloth so it's moving. So now people know something happened under the table. But to make it very, very obvious, I said, 很痛的嘞! It's really painful one, you know. We had guests over and all of them looked at Mom because they knew she physically abused me. I totally embarrassed her and gave her away. The minute I knew that I could shame her like that, the pinching stopped. Thank you. Okay. If you guys have the first book, okay, if you guys have the first book, turn to page 30. This one's called Bird Cages. Okay. When I was a kid, my dad would make me clean his bird cages. I hated cleaning bird shit. It would have been okay if all I had to do was scrape a fat lump of crap off the cage, but no.
It is a
My dad has a bird farm, so it was thousands of tiny poop in hundreds of cages.
Is that what it?
I apologize for this next sentence because I tried to see how much I can push the envelope of writing shit in a book. So one time I did a shitty job, and my dad gave me shit for it. I was 16, and I was sick of his shit. So the whole thing became a huge argument. Okay, at this time, I didn't know that. I was thinking someone was going to publish this book, so I wanted to push the envelope with shit. Anyway, we had a huge argument. So huge that I didn't eat at home or talk to my dad for days. I would sit in my room and mind my own business. If I never had to see him again, I'll be fine. After a week, my dad walked into my room while I was playing video games. The timing couldn't be worse. My dad hated video games. He was already disappointed enough in me, and on top of that, I was playing video games, wasting precious time. The only thing I could have done that could be worse then was if I was making out with someone. Is this what you're going to do with the rest of your life? He said. Yes. I became an animator and I made games for 13 years and I played video games every day. There's actually way more to this story than what I wrote, but this is a much better ending. This is because while I was writing it, my mind drifted and then I wrote a different story, a different ending. But today I'm going to give you guys the real ending.
Yes. Oh, that's so, my God, this is so amazing. Right?
This is always the amazing.
Okay, so before I write the books, I mean, this is my sketchbook, you know. Fantastic. I drew some circles and what looks like a guy. Okay, so this is the real story. And this came up because a few days ago my friend was asking me some stuff and it reminded me of it. Oh, it was because my friend didn't have a very good relationship with his dad. And he was telling me, and I didn't know how my dad transitioned from my dad to becoming a friend. And then it reminded me of the story. When I was a kid, my dad wanted me to help him with the birds. This story took a different direction when I was writing in my first book, but today I want to tell you the story that was meant to be told. I hated cleaning cages, and it was also interrupting my afternoon cartoons, so I was grumpy when I did it. My dad saw that I wasn't giving my best, so he yelled at me and told me that if I didn't want to do it, don't do it. Go away. And I did. I went away. I stayed away from having meals with him too. I ate out every day at the shops near our house. And I stayed in my room all day for days. Then he came in one day, and the timing couldn't be worse because I was playing video games on the computer. There is nothing he hated more than his son playing games when the grades were already terrible. So he said, "Is that what you're going to do with the rest of your life?" And it was the first time I retaliated. I was 16, and I said that the reason I never voiced anything when he tells me to do stuff that I don't like is because he just had heart surgery, and I didn't want to give him another heart attack. My mom also warned me, like, 不要刺激你的爸爸. Please don't get him too excited or get him angry. I told him that I have things I want to do too, and it wasn't fair that he just made me drop everything and focus on cleaning the bird cages. And then for the first time in my life, my dad became the quiet one. And I could hear myself talking, because every time you have a talk with your dad, he starts and then he ends. But this time, it took a turn. And then I remember that he sat on my bed and then he was silent. And then he said, "I'm sorry." And then he placed his hand on my shoulder. I can't recall what else followed, but we had dinner again that night. And from that day on, he wasn't my dad anymore, but he was my best friend. Thank you very much. All right, so do I actually have time for one more story? So a few years back, 2012, I just left Blizzard. I didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life again. And at that point, I already finished the first book, and I didn't know how to go on with it because I've already been rejected by publishers for 4.5 years. Okay, so you guys keep in mind, the first book that you guys are reading that eventually became a bestseller was actually not meant to be published because no one wanted to do it. So after 4.5 years of work, I decided, I need to give it a fair shot. I need to raise money on my own and then publish it myself and see where it will go. Even after I published the book, no one wanted to take it, so I started writing to different editors. And this is one of my letters to an editor that changed my life. Hello, Ellen. My name is Boey, and a friend referred me to your blog where I ninja'd this address. I got his email through the blog. I'm best known for my works on foam cups since they went viral 4 years ago, and I've amassed a following on my blog that I update 6 times a week. I'm actively promoting this book now, especially so in Asia, because it's rather disheartening that my artwork is better known in other parts of the world, but hardly at all back home. And then I tell him about my blog. My blog is basically just about my day-to-day, nothing shocking, but it has attracted a fair amount of viewers all over the world who are interested in stories about love, parents, and your everyday mundane. I'm writing to you because I have a book out. It's about my childhood in Malaysia or Singapore. It's currently available for purchase through Blurb for $20 USD each. It's 6x9, 186 pages. The price point is high for locals, actually. It's actually insane because when I converted 20 USD to ringgit, it was like hundreds of dollars. So I'm exploring my options. I honestly don't know what will come of this email, but hope dies last, and I'm hopeful. And then I sent him the book, and the next thing you know, it became a bestseller. So what I want to leave you guys with today is that if you guys don't succeed, I mean, you guys hear things about try again, you know. Think of this, or take this as an example, you know. I've tried for 4.5 years, and I've been rejected countless times. People don't want to do it for me, or they say that the book is not good enough. They've never seen anything like this at all. Who writes a book in Photoshop? Don't give up, because you never know what will become of it. You know, if you give up too soon, you will never know what success is like. Thank you so much.
You still get the bouncing security. You still get the bouncing.
I want to take a picture.
You got phone right there.
No, I want to take a picture with him.
Yeah, me and
That's why.
Can we have one more last round of applause, please? Okay, Boey's going to be here for as long as I guess the books and the merchandise last. And some of you have brought your other books in for signing. If you have commitments, if you have to go to a CCA, then you must do that now. Okay? Otherwise, if you can make an orderly queue like you did downstairs, the table at the back.